Don't wait until the weather turns to replace your windows. This month, Window Nation is offering 50%. You heard me right, half off on all window styles. And their installation crews finish the job in a day or less, so you can get your new windows, then enjoy the rest of the summer safe in the knowledge that they've been expected again and again to keep your home comfortable year round. But y'all, this sale ends very soon. Schedule a fast, free estimate now with Window Nation. Call 866-90-NATION or head to windownation.com. Okay, so Simone, you and I both had the chance to see Dungeons & Dragons, the 20-sided tavern at Broadway Playhouse at Water Tower Place. And for me personally, it was unlike anything I have experienced in a Chicago theater. What did you think?
Oh my God, I loved it. The show changes every time. So kind of makes me want to go see it again.
That's exactly how I felt leaving.
What happens?
Again, even if you've never played the game, it's just like a really interactive fantasy play because of how much you're able to use your phone, interact with the choices that are taking place.
There will be plenty to see between now until the show closes September 28th. Jacoby, where can people get tickets?
Get your tickets now at BroadwayInChicago.com. Today on CityCast Chicago, rain and floods hit the city again. Will Chicago get any new stadium soon? And if you like looking at, admiring, or dreaming about classic cars, you're going to want to hear about this auction coming up. It's Tuesday, August 19th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I've got executive producer Simone Alicea in the building. What's up, Simone? How was your weekend?
It was good. I was out at a fan expo in Rosemont talking about a Abridged anime parody series that I've been voice acting in, Mobile Suit Gundam Abridged, for those of you who are interested. And it was a good time. It was fun.
Who's your character?
I play a variety of side characters.
Okay.
I have somehow been typecast into, I have played two divorced mothers, one of whom is the mom of the main villain in the series. So, but I think coming up, I'm going to be playing a love interest potentially for one of the main characters.
Do you go in straight Simone voice? Do you give them like different voices, textures, personalities? I'm interested. I have a couple that are more straight, but then I play one of those side characters. I play a quote street tough, and he's why are you on a da 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 da? You know, he's like it's very fun. He's like a 1920s paper boy.
Yeah.
With a little bit
because
of edge.
I went into it not having actually watched it, so I just made it up based on what the lines were, and turns out like the animation is like a big hulking dude, so it was like doubly funny.
I felt like I was at my own fan con over the weekend. I went to the Savannah Bananas Day 2 on Saturday night at Sox Park, aka Guaranteed Rate. I hate to say this out of my goddamn mouth because it hurts so much, but I don't actually think I've ever been to a Sox game with that many people in the ballpark, and it really sucked. It was cool on the one hand to see because I've only seen it viewed via TikTok videos, and I just assumed, like you and like so many others, that this was something that was happening primarily in Savannah, some like small team turned novelty. I knew they had a little 60 Minutes. And then it just sort of popped up a couple weeks ago. I found out they were touring America and stopping in Chicago. And it was 40,000 plus people out there on Saturday. So much merch, so many people in banana costumes. I didn't stay for the entire game, but the amount of fanfare, they were throwing bananas from the bleachers to two young men with parachute pants on trying to catch them. It was a whole circus. I didn't know it was that big.
I just kind of knew them as like that dancing baseball team on social media. Do they play another team? Who are they playing? They played
the Firefighters, I think was the team. So
is that just like another? I have not a clue of how this works. I think
all of the teams are like owned by, they're about to start a league of like 6 teams, and I think the owner of the Bananas owns all of the other teams. So I think they're just like a touring show. I don't know.
I think the headline was like the Harlem Globetrotters of of baseball is sort of the headline, I think, at the Sun Times that week. I actually think this is exactly what baseball needs. It needs more performance. It needs more.
It was a lot going on, but again, to see them really engage the fans in a way that at a certain point I was like, all right, just get this thing started, because there were rain delays.
You were there for the baseball. You want to see that?
At a certain point I was like, all right, I get all the rules and how it's going. Let's get this thing started. Chance came out at one point the night before, but it was a big deal. Over the weekend, just like last week, it felt like flash thunderstorms took Chicago by whole. But can you kind of talk about what were the impacts of this most recent rain over the weekend?
Yeah, I think the trick with these storms is like, if you're just like out here experiencing the world, they come in crazy fast and they come in really, really hard, right? And so
I got caught in them twice last week.
Yeah, this past weekend, the storms over the weekend, as of early Sunday, had left over 60,000 people without power in the Chicagoland area. Some of those repairs were expected to take until like Monday afternoon to fully resolve. At O'Hare, there were some 264 flights canceled in a 24-hour period. And then of course, it was actually less than a week before that. It was like 5 days before that. There were hundreds of flooding complaints coming into 311. It was, we saw flash floods everywhere. I got caught in it on Saturday on the way back from Fan Expo, and it was wild. Your windshield wipers are going as fast as they can. You don't know if that next puddle up ahead is a gigantic flood or if you're going to make it through. And, luckily everyone got home safe, but it was pretty scary. It's pretty intense.
Highways, viaducts were flooded. Now, my mom got power outage at one point, caused some flooding in her basement. And she said she's going to have to redo her entire gutter system, because the last couple of times we've got quick and hard rain, it's really gotten on the inside. And she honestly gets what I'd like to think is like the bare minimum if you do get water inside. I know some people, I saw pictures of whole basements flooded, which just sort of takes me back to my childhood.
Yeah, it's been really rough. The Sun-Times had a story this morning about some new sensors being deployed here soon to help detect floodwaters over the next 18 months. So it's new tech from Verizon and a Michigan-based startup called HiFi. And basically they're sonar detectors. It's actually funny. I was reading the story and I was like, it's kind of like ShotSpotter, but for floodwater. So basically they're using sound to pick up when water levels are reaching dangerous levels, and they're placing these sensors around. They're placing a lot of them on the west side and in Chatham, which has seen some of the worst flooding in the past few years. And the idea is like they can actually detect when floods could be getting dangerous even before people start calling into emergency services. So this company HiFi has done a pilot in New Orleans, for example, and they say that their sensors were picking up flooding in areas, up to an hour before emergency calls actually started coming in. So the hope is twofold. Ideally that you can get services like emergency services to people if they're, more quickly, but also B, the idea is to use that data to study what are the places in Chicago's infrastructure that need the most help? What are the sewers or the, as you said, the viaducts, wherever, the bridges that need the most help most quickly in order to reduce flooding? Because as we know, our sewer system, even though it is a marvel of engineering and certainly was 150 years ago when it was constructed, now it's 150 years old. It's really old. It's aging, and it cannot handle these storms that have now become more common.
We did an episode with our colleagues at the Illinois Answers Project to talk about is Chicago prepared for this type of rain? And as we've seen, the answer was largely no.
We haven't talked a ton on the show this year about floods, but, there was a storm in July where over 100 homes in Cook County were destroyed, hundreds more reporting major damage. There was a disaster proclamation proclaimed by the county. And it's becoming this perennial thing that we just have to, we're watching again and again. It's causing, obviously, there's a lot of problems here, right? The flooding is causing who knows how much in damage to people's homes that they have to pay for. And, you've got insurance rates going up and things like that. It's a cost issue.
Disaster services are being cut at the federal level at the exact same time.
Right. Who knows how that's going to manifest in the near future. And then, of course, there's just sort of the safety element of, right, if you have, not only is there an immediate issue of there's flooding in your home, like that's sort of can be an immediate safety thing. You have electrical hazards in particular, but it can be a long-term health issue and safety issue as well. If you have mold that's growing, or again, anything coming up from that sewer that is gross that you don't want around out on the streets in your home, that's a health hazard as well. And so there's sort of several layers to, I think that's the thing about flooding as a natural disaster, as opposed to maybe heat or some of these other things we've talked about as becoming more common because of climate change. I think with flooding, it's like, it's not just that day of rain that you have to worry about. It's the many weeks after that you might be contending with, depending on how bad the damage is.
Yeah, there's some Chicagoans who still haven't fully recovered from the storms we saw.
2 years
last
ago.
year? Was it 2 years ago?
2 years, 2023. Yeah.
Yeah, never received funding assistance. And yeah, I've talked about it on the show before. When our basement flooded when I was in high school, we lost so much in terms of family photos, clothes that were packed away. Like you said, the long-term impacts of having to track for mold, the amount of carpet damage that happened. It took us months to get on the other side of it. And so, for the families in Chicago who are impacted, I'm hoping they receive assistance from the city, state, or even the federal level. But we will continue to follow this because from all reports, we are not out of the thick of it yet. There is likely to be more water this week. All right, so I want to name a couple qualities. I want you to think if they apply to you, and just maybe I might got your next career move. Ready? I bet. Do you have a passion for people? You're excited to help others, and you got great customer service skills. Do you crave flexibility, right? You want to be in charge of your own schedule and chart your own course. Do you got that hustle in you, right? Are you ready to turn that drive into something meaningful? All right, if you answer yes, then hey, real estate might be your next big move. Realtors help people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives, buying or selling a home, and no 2 days are the same. It's a chance to grow a business, make an impact, and build the lifestyle you're working towards. Visit realtorsrealestateschool.com to set up a free career consultation. Remember that amazing little cafe you went to last summer? The one with the perfect breakfast sandwich and them delicious smoothies? Or what about that hiking spot or that biking trail your friend told you about, but for some reason you can't remember the name? Well, with Overlook Maps, special places never get lost again, my friends. Create personal lists of places you've been and want to go. Hey, share your favorite hidden gems with friends and family. Let them discover that nail salon, that barbecue spot, that row of thrift shops that you've been trying to gatekeep. Or you know what, hey, if you want, keep your secret spots completely private. But what about this? Maybe you planning a trip with friends. You can create a share list where everyone can add their ideas. Maybe you visiting a new city. You can check out lists from locals who already know the best spots that you should pull up on. And here's a key part. No ads cluttering your list. No one selling your data to advertisers. Just your personal collection of amazing places organized exactly how you want them. Overlook Maps. Collect, organize, and share the places that matter to you. Download free at overlookmaps.com. And you want a little bonus? Go to overlookmaps.com/Chicago to see some of our lists and great spots on a map and in your pocket. Your places, your way. While both city and state lawmakers are on a bit of a vacation, both of them will be coming back to, let's just call it, a long list of things to deal with. But on both of their agendas is the future of some Chicago stadium proposals, or in the case of the Bears, Chicagoland stadium proposal. Simone, let's start off with the Chicago Fire, who announced a plan earlier this year to build a $650 million stadium in the South Loop. The city council has to take this up, but we recently heard from some people in the neighborhood via a neighborhood survey.
A community group, South Loop Neighbors, they surveyed 653 residents in the neighborhood and found that almost three-quarters of respondents were supportive of this proposal to build a stadium at what is known as the 78, this big mega development that has been wanting for an anchor tenant for a few years at this point. And they're hoping that the Fire will be that anchor tenant with a new MLS stadium. It's interesting because they did this survey. There were also community meetings in Chinatown that went a little differently. So while most people were pretty supportive in South Loop, and I mean, you can see the appeal, right? I think as far as like places to put a stadium, the 78 is, right? It's a big swath of empty land. And again, in a place like South Loop, you're maybe not as worried about displacement. However, in Chinatown, there were big fears about displacement. And in Chinatown, they've been talking about what's going on at the 78 for a long time, right? That they were really opposed to the idea of putting a casino there when that was in the cards. And, you know, these concerns are coming up again. I think one of the quotes I really liked from the Trib story was that someone at the meeting said was, what is affordable in South Loop is really different from what's affordable in Chinatown. And Chicago has, you know, one of the few Chinatowns that are growing in the country. They also cited a couple of other Chinatowns around the country where stadiums were put. I think in DC, the Wizards new stadium, that led to changes in the neighborhood and people, you know, things becoming more expensive and people getting displaced. And so kind of interesting the differences around, you know, and because of the way the 78 is situated, it's almost like the 78 almost like separates those two neighborhoods, kind of like, yeah.
It sits at the north end of Pington Park, even though it's about a half mile from like the center of Chinatown. But like you said, neighbors are already concerned. There isn't a ton of parking. Even the residents in the South Loop, the big pushback was traffic.
Not just car traffic, but also pedestrian access. Because there was also initially in one of the infrastructure asks. So, right, the stadium itself, the owner of the Fire, Joe Mansueto, has said that will be privately financed. They're not asking for public money on that. However, there was going to be money for infrastructure upgrades. And some of those elements included a new CTA station and redoing the Metro tracks there. That is now not included in their latest proposal. And so, of course, that has people like, okay, well, if we're not including these infrastructure asks, then what does that mean for pedestrians who are trying to get around that area? And how are we going to access this site? Because it is, it's a very bizarre little...
sits between the river and Clark Street, which is very small, I think 4 lanes maybe all together, going up Clark between Roosevelt and 18th Street. Roosevelt sits elevated above the 78, so there's no direct access to the stadium except for Clark Street. You have the Roosevelt Red Line that sits about maybe 2 blocks away from it, but the amount of congestion that could happen at that stop for Fire games potentially have a lot of people concerned, including the alderperson who says there still has to be broader conversations around parking, pedestrian access, what the future of Roosevelt and Clark Street look like with a whole venue right next to it. On the other end, we have the Chicago Bears, who the idea that there would have been a Fire stadium happening as Soldier Field was being renovated for a Bear stadium all around each other was already a nightmare. But it does seem like the Bears have completely pivoted, which, let's be real, we've expected for years and years and years, back to Arlington Heights, where the plan for a $1 billion entertainment complex and domed football stadium seems to be plowing ahead. However, when state lawmakers come back for the fall veto session, the Bears are really hoping to get some good news from them. Simone, what's the latest here?
Yeah. So the Bears want to break ground on this new stadium this year, theoretically. However, they still have some wants. They want some tax breaks. They want some property tax breaks in particular, and in Arlington Heights, and they can only get those if approved by state lawmakers. They're hoping that this approval will happen during the fall veto session. But I will remind you, Jacoby, the fall veto session is like a week of actual voting and like session. Like it's not that long. And lawmakers have a lot of other stuff that they need to deal with that is not the Bears stadium. We had at least one Chicago lawmaker who said that a transit bailout is absolutely on the agenda, right? We still haven't gotten a plan for what's going to happen to the CTA Metra Pace fiscal cliff, right? And so that is supposed to be happening. As we talked about on Monday's show, CPS is looking for some more money from the state. I don't know if the General Assembly is planning to take that up in the veto session. Unsure about that. And then on top of that, it was funny. The Trib was out at the state fair talking to these lawmakers. And one was like, okay, well, what about all this debt we have on Soldier Field? Are the Bears going to pay for that? You have another person who's like, okay, are they going to talk to us about education and transit funding in Chicago? Like, how are the Bears going to help with that? Like, it is.
I appreciated Cam Buckner, who was like, this should not devolve into a quid pro quo situation, but it seems in many ways that it will. The state has a lot of problems. The Bears has a lot of desires. The state lawmakers seem to make it clear. You got $525 million in outstanding public debt from the last Soldier Field renovation. That's over 20 years old now. They say we're not moving forward if that doesn't get paid off, or a plan to pay that off faster. And it also seems that because they have problems, they may make the Bears kick in on some funding for maintaining Soldier Field even after they're gone, and lakefront redevelopments and transit, and maybe get them in on some transit bill stuff. It's already going to cost the Bears a ton of money to break a lease, to break ground, to build a stadium. But it's clear if they got their hands out for direct financing for a stadium from Illinois, it's not going to happen.
Pritzker mentioned this when asked about it, that the team was valued at $8.8 billion. And so, I think I think they know what they're talking about. My favorite part of the story is the kicker at the very end. There's a quote from House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch, who is basically saying, like, I haven't talked to there have been no House members that I've talked to about the Bears. And he says, people are so focused on talking to their neighbors and getting candidacy petitions signed. And what they're hearing at the doors is property taxes, grocery prices, gas prices. They're talking about things around the kitchen table. You know what they're not talking about? The Chicago Bears. Yeah, it is going to be a uphill battle. I mean, the Bears are going to get their stadium in Arlington Heights one way or the other. But the idea that they're going to talk about it in the fall veto session is pretty laughable to me personally. But we'll see.
On Tuesday, arguably one of the greatest car collections in the world, the Claremont Collections Automotive Museum, which we've ran ads for here on the show, is a month away from, I think, closing its doors for good. But they're going out with a bang, Simone, because they are hosting arguably one of the coolest auctions Chicago has ever seen. Tell me a little bit more about this.
Yeah, so basically they are going to be selling off the whole collection. If you've been to the museum, you know that, their car collection is kind of wild. It spans the gamut from literally like horse and buggy, like carriages to, stuff from the future, designs that people were thinking that cars of the future would be, and every kind of classic car in between. But it's also got a lot of like sort of road memorabilia. So think like Road 66, old fashioned gas station kind of stuff, right? That kind
like
of thing.
Old gas station pumps, like the back seat car from some dope cars, car posters, old neon signs you'd see at a bar. Simone, what do you think is the oldest car in their collection?
The oldest actual car? I don't know. So let's see. Like with an engine, I don't know, 1905.
Oh, you close as hell. 1906 American Tourist.
I know how old cars are, Jacoby. Like I have a concept.
Larry Claremont and his wife had been collecting them for decades, but the museum didn't open until 2000. And I think at the height of his collection, he had over 600 cars. Now it's half of that.
And Larry passed away a few years ago.
In 2021. And the museum kept going, kept showcasing the collection, but now they are hoping that, most of them find new homes, whether in other dope collections in museums or private collections, whatever the case may be. I'm gonna be real with you. I didn't realize just how extensive this thing was. I knew some of the highlights, but I had never gone through all of them. And I put together a list of some of my favorites. Like if money was no object, and I could just bid on anything in there, I put together a list of I think 5 I would get. The one that hit the nail on the head for most nostalgic for me was a custom 1966 Ford Econoline super van. And that's because
they really belie that title really does not communicate what's happening in this photo here.
No. Most people have no idea what that looks like, but they have completely outfitted it to look like the mystery machine from Scooby-Doo.
I love, and it has a little, I don't know if it comes with this, but it has a little dummy of Fred at the driver's wheel with the ascot.
The dummies do look a little scary. I'm not going to lie to you. But outside, complete paint job. Inside, there is an orange and blue Scooby-Doo couch. They got the pillows. It's completely decked out inside with blankets. The characters are on the wall. There are plushies. It's an absolute beautiful car. For a collection that has DeLoreans and Batmobile replicas and things from and the Wrangler from Jurassic Park, this was probably the one that hit hardest for most nostalgic.
I also think, you could make you could make money off this. You could make this a whole business where then you go to parties and be like, let me bring the mystery machine to your party. Because I saw that at Fan Expo.
Get the knockoff costumes. I'm sure you can find them somewhere. Probably the most badass car that I saw, the one that I would absolutely love walking out into a garage and just like getting a microfiber cloth and just wiping for no reason, was this 1959 Cadillac Eldorado. Only one of 1,300 of these were ever made. I think, what is it? Desert Rose is the exterior color. Interior is white and rose. It is one of the most beautiful vehicles I have ever seen in my life. This shit is so player. You got that the backseat bench.
I get what you're saying. You drive that car to a public place so that people can watch you wipe it down.
Exactly. You just ride in the summer in this. You take this to car shows around the city. Yeah, this thing is, and I'll be real, I know nothing about cars. I have little to no obsession with vehicles.
Oh, great. So we have 2 people who know nothing about cars.
Know nothing about cars. However, my mom loves cars. Her partner has this absolute classic in the garage. He got 2 Harleys in this. He got an old Buick Skylark baby blue. It's gorgeous. This just player. This absolutely beautiful. You go out in the garage and see this every day. A couple of the other ones I really liked. The weirdest looking car, but I wanted to say it was like the coolest looking, was this 1950 Studebaker Ice Princess. Now it looked like this is right out of the Jetsons or a James Bond movie. Doesn't look practical. I don't
think this is the weirdest car in this collection.
And then the Good Humor ice cream cart tricycle.
Oh, I gotta see this.
Like, that just looks like a really cool, like if I had a living room big enough to just have that as just like an art piece in the living room, that's something I would just have sitting in my house. And I'd probably try and make it practical. And actually you could use it as a cooler.
That's what you bring to the cookout, Jacoby.
I wouldn't. No, that would just sit. That would just sit in the living room.
It is a literal ice cream cart, friends. Yeah. I don't know how else it, it's got the bells on the beach with
it, selling ice cream. No, it's absolutely beautiful. I don't know from what year. It's not in the details, but it is restored. And yeah, I would just, I'd put that somewhere in the house. That thing is so gorgeous. But those are the ones that really stood out to me. We could drop links in the show notes for people to go through and look out the collection on their own. Again, even if you are not into cars like that, I think it's a collection worth looking at.
Yeah, and the Claremont Collections Automotive Museum is currently closed, but they're going to basically open kind of one last time for visitors. That's happening September 13th and 14th. And then the next weekend, so about a month from now, they will be hosting the auction. So if you actually want to get in on the bidding, that's going to be happening in mid-September. But yeah, definitely see if you can get over there.
I want to give a huge thank you to our executive producer, Simone Alisea, for talking flooding, stadium, and sitting through the Claremont Collections with me.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Before we get out of here, please visit our show notes, not only to read more about all of the things we talked about, but to also take our annual audience survey. We want to learn more about you, where you stay, what you love about the podcast, what type of things do you want from the newsletter and from CityCast as a whole. And even if you took it last year, we want you to take it again. We actually want you to take it every single year to help us grow, to help us learn more, and we'll enter you in for a chance to win a $250 Visa gift card. It's going to take you 7 minutes, which comes out to like $36, $37 a minute, which, you know, I think is pretty good hourly wage for taking a survey. I'm not in the survey taking business, but that seems pretty decent. One more thing, some good news. The Chicago Sky are home twice this week, including tonight against the Seattle Storm, and then again on Saturday against the Connecticut Sun. I know it has been a tough season. We're hoping to have our star Angel Reese back in the lineup at some point this week. She missed the last 7 games with a back injury. Stars are also home this Friday against the North Carolina Courage. Again, I'll drop links for you in the show notes. You know where that's going to be? Right next to the link for our audience survey, which you could take at citycast.fm/survey. As always, we appreciate you for listening and reading. We're going to be back in the building bright and early tomorrow. Hopefully you'll join us. Peace. It just looks like it was in the Jeffersons for some reason.
The
or
Jetsons?
Or in like the Jeffersons.
The Jeffersons. It's like,
Yes, this looked like it was in the episode of the Jeffersons.